How's it going, guys? Back out here at the Smith Center. Going to be checking out Fiddler on the Roof, one of the classics. This will be my second time seeing it, and I'm telling you, it's going to be a great performance. Let's go check it out. Alright guys, that was a great performance of Fiddler on the Roof. Now if you had to categorize Fiddler on the Roof, it would fall into that classical type of play. It came out in the 1960s, and the play takes place in the early 1900s in Russia, and I'll get back to that in just a little bit. But my first experience was way back in the early 2000s when I was at Michigan State, and it's funny how things change. Like when you see something, the same type of material, but when you're a little bit older, you see things through a different lens. Alright, now the play takes place in 1905, which is pretty much modern Ukraine, and it's under Russian control. So it's a Jewish village that's being controlled by the Russian, and there's a constable that's in the village. So that kind of sets an underlying issue with the tension between Jewish and the Russians at the time, on top of all the things that our main character, Tevye, has to deal with. Now with Fiddler, there is no doubt that Tevye is the main character. It's all about Tevye here. And even though it's about marrying his daughters off, the three oldest, if you have a weak Tevye, this play is not going to work. You have to have an actor that's very relatable, has good comedic timing, and is very flexible as far as being dramatic and switching over to humorous. Now, the big symbolism they start off with is the Fiddler on the Roof. It's kind of like the fiddler represents Jewish tradition, and it's very kind of walking the line like a fiddler on the roof. You know, what do? Like, we're trying to scratch out this living like a fiddler on the roof. We're trying to survive without breaking our necks. That's a line from the play. So it's one of those things where it's not just a Jewish thing. It's one of those issues where what do we do when we have a very traditional type of society or religion, and we're trying to adopt it into an ever-changing world, which holds true today. If you think about it, what our parents found acceptable when they were younger is far different from what's acceptable nowadays. So that's what the heart of it is, and they frame it around marrying his three daughters. Alright, without giving away too much of the play, just remember that this whole thing focuses on the three oldest daughters don't want to marry through arranged marriages. They want to marry for love. So we know the first one, the eldest, wants to marry her childhood sweetheart. And that leads to my favorite scene. But I want to tell you about the other three favorite scenes I have. So the first one, in the midst of all of this craziness, him trying to marry all his daughters for love and all of this, there's a scene in there that's very sweet between Tevye and his wife, and he just asks her, hey, with all this going on, what about us? Like, we've been together for so long, you know, we have this farm, I'm a poor milkman, our life isn't very good, but do you love me? And there's this nice, sweet, tender moment where they sing to each other, do you love me? That's my first scene. It's not very animated, there's not a lot of scenery, but it's just these two parents kind of looking at each other thinking, yeah, I think I do love you. Now in the play, according to Jewish tradition, you're supposed to go to a matchmaker, or the parents can go to whoever they want to marry their daughters off. But of course, the three daughters will have none of that. In fact, when we see the play, the eldest daughter was promised to this guy named Laser Wolf. I think he's a butcher in the play. But she's like, no, he's old, he's nasty, I really want to marry my childhood friend. And that's where things get kind of weird, because he goes to a bar and agrees on it, and he has to back out of it, which leads me to my favorite scene in the entire play. Alright, now let me set up this second scene here. So my second favorite scene is when the eldest daughter actually gets married. And the reason this is one of my favorite scenes is it shows kind of like the old time big dance numbers. Let's have a look at a quick clip. Alright, it's a party! Guys, this was a great scene. This gives a great glimpse as to what it was like to be in a play in the 1960s. Ton of music, ton of dancing, just a big number. And for me, the most important thing is, it gives us a look at the Jewish culture. And guys, I don't know much about the Jewish culture. I can count how many Jewish people I know on one hand. And what way to better get to know a culture than its traditions, and what more sacred than a wedding. I love this scene. Alright guys, on to my favorite scene out of this entire play. Let me set it up for you. So Tevye had agreed to marry his eldest daughter to Laser Wolf, and now he has to find a way to back out of it, because he told his daughter it's cool. Go marry your childhood sweetheart. I realize you don't want to marry this old nasty dude. So now he's got to find a way to back out of it, which is breaking tradition in a huge way. So he comes up with this plan to tell his wife, "Oh, hun, I had this horrible nightmare where your grandmother came back and said, 'Don't do it. It's a horrible omen.'" And it is so well lit. It reminds me of Beetlejuice or Corpse of the Bride. Check it out.
My husband, would you do this to your friend and neighbor from a Sarah? Have you no consideration for a woman's feelings? Handing over my belongings to a total stranger.
Yeah, so that was my favorite scene, man. That was wild. All I could think about was Beetlejuice through that entire scene. Well, the play kind of continues on to the second and the third daughter, and I won't spoil the ending for you if you haven't seen Fiddler on the Roof, but I can tell you guys right now, Fiddler on the Roof is in a high school play, or it's in college play, or a Broadway play, touring company like the one I saw. It's definitely worth seeing. Guys, that's the ending of the video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you liked it, please give me the thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to Camo 365, please do. And remember, I'll catch you guys later.